Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new series I'm going to try out today. The name of the series is going to be called Teacher Take, and for this specific start of the series, we're going to focus on the TV show Abbott Elementary. And if you've never seen Abbott Elementary before, it's a TV show that talks about the day-to-day struggles and pieces of teaching in like kind of a comedic way in some ways. It's not a it's not a true series, but I think it's like based off of real life experiences in the classroom. And if you don't know, I am a third grade teacher in Michigan, and I feel like going over the episodes and just kind of offering some perspective from a teacher would be kind of fun. I also felt like it was a nice idea to do and talk about topics that might be heavy or sensitive for parents and teachers and even students that may find this that are not in like a direct way. Because I think teachers, we always have things we want to share, especially like to help people out, not to like cause drama. But I think there's a lot of negativity towards teaching right now. And I think that if we could just explain certain things, that it would help everyone get along a little bit better or maybe help certain situations. But as a teacher, we also have that do have some privacy, and there also is you have to be careful about what you share online because you never want a parent or student or anybody to think, or staff member even for that matter, to think you're talking about them, especially in a negative way. And so I think that using a TV show like Abbott Elementary will give us that kind of medium ground that we're looking for. So, anyways, my plan is to test out this series. I'm going to start off going in order of the episodes and we'll see where this takes us. I've just been obsessed with watching it since being on summer vacation, and I thought, why not voice some of my opinions? So, if you have not seen it, I'm going to do my best to not give any spoilers out for each episode, but some cases will be. I do want to say I'm not sponsored by Abbott Elementary or the network or anything. I am just offering some commentaries and constructive criticism from the perspective of a teacher. So this video is just me, my thoughts, nothing to do with them. Only just because I feel like I work in the profession and this is something to do. If you have a similar channel and you want me to check it out, feel free to share and I will do my best to check yours out. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. As I said, we were going to start with our episode one, straight from Abbott Elementary season one, episode one. We're going to start with the first episode. So, I'm going to start off with a bell ringer, and my bell ringer is going to be a recap of the episode. Initially, the episode starts out with Janine Teagues, who is a second year teacher in her classroom, and she's just this like light, excited new teacher. Really, this is in some ways this episode, the focus is on the newer teachers versus the veteran teachers. Not all the way, but it is definitely like as they're setting up the series, you're seeing the veteran teachers versus the new teachers, and especially in this episode. So again, we first meet Janine Teague. She's a second grade teacher, and this is her second year teaching at this school. She's also a graduate of the school system that she's teaching in, and so to me that part would just struck out because I also teach in the district that I grew up in, and that's just another like fun perspective. And so we meet Janine, and then we slowly start going through the rest of the cast members throughout this episode, just kind of really painting a picture for what the series is going to be about. It's an introduction episode, but overall, you can definitely see the dynamic, the difference between a newer teacher and a veteran teacher, and in terms of like energy and things. And this one, for example, a couple more teachers that we meet down the line are teachers that have been teaching for a long time. And sometimes Janine's light and fluffy, new, fresh ideas that get brought to their attention kind of get shut down, and not in like a mean, negative way, but definitely it gets shut down because I don't the two teachers that I'm talking about specifically swear that they're not burnt out, but you can see they are just like they've just accepted that certain things aren't going to change and they've just moved on. And the new teacher Janine thinks that she can change this. And so the two veteran teachers are Barbara Howard, who is a kindergarten teacher, and then Melissa, I can't think of, I forgot to write her last name down. Okay, Miss Shimenti. So she's also a second grade teacher, but they've both been teaching for a decent amount of time. And then we also meet Jacob, who is a second year teacher, just like Janine, only he teaches the middle school kids in the building. I believe the building goes from kindergarten to eighth grade, but I might be wrong. I don't think there's high school kids in there. I think it's just kindergarten to eighth grade. That's one thing that like has never fully been made clear. Maybe it has, and I just missed it. So as I'm watching the series, once I find that out, as I'm rewatching, I will share it with you. So, anyways, overall, though, you can see the dynamics of the conversations that they have. And one of the other, like, the big things is they have this principal. Her name is Ava, and she is funny, but she's also you can tell that Janine is just trying to do her job and do right. And Ava doesn't care. Ava's just there for a paycheck. And you can tell that in my opinion, you can tell that the seasoned teachers know that and have stopped building and holding out trust with Ava. They just let it go the way it is. They know that they can handle their classroom. They just kind of shut their door and teach. So that just kind of that's just to give you a quick summary as we're going through. And then going into the teacher take now. And I kind of did talk about that in the summary, but I feel like that's okay. We really I think this episode does a really great job of setting up the different dynamics between the teachers, between like older and newer teachers, and some things that really do happen. One of the big things is that there was a big issue during the episode where they needed more funds, and Ava, the principal, actually got went to the board, like wrote a note, whatever, and she went and she wrote a note. Ava Coleman, that's right. Okay, Miss Coleman, yeah, Miss Coleman, because she's not married. She is the principal. I googled her last name because I couldn't think of it. But she wrote this proposal to the board or to the district office asking for money to help solve a problem, and they instantly gave this money back. And Ms. Teagues is like so excited, thinking about what she's going to do with this money. And the seasoned teachers are telling her, don't get excited. It's not going to be what you think. Like they've already it looks like to me, these teachers have already been put through it with the principal. And maybe I'm guessing that this principal hasn't worked with them for too long, but she really hasn't proven herself in this episode to be a very effective principal. And so Janine is like, no, it's going to be great. We're going to get this money. I'm going to get this. What are you guys going to do when we get it? Maybe we can do this. And even the principal even tells her to write an email. Well, it comes back. The money comes back instantly, and they spend the money. Ava spends the money without talking to anybody, and it's not used with what the intended purpose was for. And I think my teacher, I know that that happens a lot in schools. I'm not going to go different districts. I'm not going to get into that, but I do know that there's a lot of negativity around money with schools and the mismanaging of it. And to me, this was like a very big, like your staff is telling you this needs to happen, and you just went and made your own decision. And to kind of give a little context to Ava's background, Ava just ended up with the job because somebody at the church knew she needed a job. And so she's had no teaching experience, no classroom experience, and now she's running the school. And so I think that that starts to really come out and hit home in this very first episode, especially if you're a seasoned, experienced teacher. You can look and see some of the flaws. I definitely looked and I saw some of the flaws. And then when it came to the other part, when we talked about like the experience and things, and just Ava not having a lot of experience, later in the episode, we get a new staff member who's just supposed to be a long term sub. His name is Gregory Eddy, so he goes by Mr. Eddy. And so he comes in and he says, I interviewed here a while ago and I actually interviewed for the principal job. I have no desire to be a teacher. And I think this part, but as I'm talking about Ava and thinking about Gregory, he goes by Gregory in the show. As I'm thinking about those two dynamics just out loud, this didn't occur to me when I was watching it, but now it does. One of the things that really strikes me is Gregory, right off the back, says he just wants to go into a class, go into being a principal. He just wants to be a principal. And I think that for most people, I think I've had principals that have not taught in a classroom a day in their life, and I've had principals that have taught for years, and you can tell the difference. And I think that any teacher would agree that one of the other issues in there is Ava's inexperience, and Gregory's just wanting to jump in there. And I really think that to be a good teacher, you need to have that, or to be a good principal, you need that really need that classroom experience. And I think that especially when principals are out there rating teachers and judging teachers and doing their evaluations. An evaluation, if you're not a teacher, is like a almost like a teacher report card that the principal gives. And I have found those can go very south if the principal doesn't know what they're looking for. And yeah, it's not like an easy this or that. I feel like a lot of knowing what teachers are doing is having that relationship, and Ava just doesn't have it. And Gregory thinking he can just walk in and be a principal, to me, it was hilarious. And I think that now I'm up to date with the series too, and I think we'll see him change a lot over this, and we'll see his perspective change. But my opinion, in order to be a principal, you really need classroom experience. If you have some suggestion to this, drop a comment below. Anyways, so that was just kind of my teacher take. Really, is just focusing on the different dynamics. Like you have Janine who's excited, and then you have the seasoned teachers that are like, ain't gonna happen. And so I think as the series unfolds, we'll kind of get to see a lot more of the staff dynamic, but and just the teachers and the energy, and I don't know, it's just really cool. So I do have notes over here. So when I'm thinking about the my classroom connection for this one, I really think that the big part of this classroom connection overall is just the day-to-day struggles of a school. There are ups and downs, not every day. Okay, I've never had 2 days. This I'm going into my 10th year teaching this fall, and I've never had 2 days the same. I know other teachers out there, yep, and that's one of the joys I think too. Like I jokingly say all the time, like I would be bored working with adults because every day would be the same. And yes, there's like other teachers there, but we're lucky if we see each other for like 30 minutes. So I just, from a teacher's perspective, I think that they do a really nice job of talking about the financial struggles of a school, talking about the behavior struggles of a school, and even showing the experience versus inexperience. And that kind of starts to unfold a little bit more too as we go through the series. So I overall really enjoyed that. I think also too, one of the things when I think about my classroom and my connection is I can really relate to, I'm at the point where I can remember my young first couple of year teacher self like Janine. And I can also think now, I'm not super seasoned. I'm not like a 20-year veteran teacher, but I have been teaching almost 10 years, and I was a sub and a para before that. So I've worked through the ropes of a school, and I've also had different dynamics. So I feel like that's okay. But I remember being like Janine, Miss and being excited to go to my first classroom and set it up. Iced coffee. So if you're watching this, I will probably have a coffee every time I do an episode like this, so feel free to join in. Anyways, when I remember being so excited to go to my first classroom and set it up, and you just finished college and you're ready to go out into the world of teaching and you think you have it all together and you set up your classroom and you spend hours and thousands of dollars. Not really. I had no money in the first year of teaching to buy anything for my classroom. So I remember just like making things work and it was fine. But you're just so excited to go into this classroom. And then the first day of school happens and the kids show up. And the reality is way different. It's I don't know how all college education programs are when it comes to teaching, but I do know that I feel like I go back and forth with saying there's no behavior management class in college, but I also don't know that a behavior management class could prepare you. And you kind of start to see this unfold throughout the series too. But in this episode, just the pressures and the struggles that these teachers go through, I can definitely relate with without giving into too much of the episode. But like, there's just more to teaching than people realize. And I think that overall, this series does a really nice job of talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in every episode, they kind of have a good, a bad, an ugly. And I don't want to, some of those are spoilers, though, so I'm going to be very careful about how I talk about them. But I think relating to my classroom self, I've had students fall asleep in my classroom. I've had no money given for a classroom. I've had students come to school hungry. There's just so many layers. And I've also had some seasoned, burnt out teachers not be very nice. And I think, and I later on, we always come back and you'll see. I think actually, I am going to kind of go through this because I don't want somebody else sitting next to me to see this and think I'm like being mean. But I think that sometimes with seasoned teachers, it's also a way to like build trust and build some dynamic. And you want to trust your teaching partners and you want to trust your staff. But those young new teachers are so full of energy and life. And we have to be very careful as seasoned teachers to not crush their spirit. And so when I talk about the older seasoned teachers that I worked with that were maybe not so happy to talk to me at first, and I had to, there's a lot of getting to know each other that goes on in a staff too. And sometimes I think that seasoned teachers just their lives are different. Things have changed. They have they have a bigger family at home. They have all these things. And like if I can like so when I'm trying to think of where I want to go at this point. So I think the dynamic of just the beginning teachers and the seasoned teachers is different too. And that's probably something I didn't understand as a new teacher. And I think that Janine probably doesn't understand too. And I'll compare myself and her in a second. But I think that overall, Barbara Howard, who's the older veteran teacher, doesn't really like Janine at the beginning. And later on, they do kind of come to have an understanding, not in this episode specifically, but like throughout the series. And it does remind me of a few of my teaching partners that I've had or just staff members. And I think it's just about getting to know people. And so going back to myself and Janine, so thinking about it, kind of like some of the ways that Janine and I can relate with Janine. I guess we're similar. We're similar. I don't know. I did take notes, but I'm making this up as I go because I want it to be authentic. And I just want to share thoughts from watching the show. When I started teaching, I think they don't really tell us how old Janine is in the series, but I want to say she's probably 24, 22, 20, somewhere between 22 and 24. And I was, I think, 26 when I got my first classroom. But like Janine and we're both young. I did have a long-term boyfriend at the time. She has a long-term boyfriend when she starts this out. But we don't have kids. We don't have all these like after school commitments. We do have different dynamics after school, but when you focus on like and myself versus a seasoned teacher, their lives are just different too. They have to come to work and they don't necessarily have all the extra time to give to a new teacher. They do it within their work hours, but then you see they just go home. And you'll find that I feel like I find that a lot now, but as an older teacher, I also see that now. Like I've given my 8 hours and what's the amount that I'm willing to stay after and what's the time to say, okay, Ashley, it's time to go home. And I think that Janine is starting to learn this too. But again, you just have you just have staff members in different seasons of life, phases of life, parts of life. And I think that that's part of what the changes the dynamic a little bit is because what might be easy for somebody without kids to do isn't necessarily easy for somebody with kids. Or some teachers, are at that point where their parents are older and they're having to take care of it. There's just a lot of different dynamics. And I feel like going into my career as a teacher, it was, I don't want to say easier because definitely your first couple of years, you don't know which way's up. I mean, you try, but and then you always overcommit yourself. And I think that that's one thing that eventually needs to be talked about is reasonable expectations outside of teaching for a new teacher versus a seasoned teacher. But again, like now, I get to school. I don't have kids now either because I can't have them. And I have, but I have 3 dogs and 4 cats. So I do have reasons and a husband, and I do have reasons to be home. And Janine, in these first couple of years, doesn't have those commitments either. Whereas some of her staff member or some of her like colleagues do have they have families, they have kids, they have husbands and things like that and stuff. They have grandkids and things they have to go take care of. So they can't just stay after, or they don't always have the time to stray from whatever task they're on. And they're also built into these routines. And I don't think that's bad. Not at all. I definitely don't think that having these routines and stuff is bad. I just think as a new teacher, you don't always understand how your colleagues are like you don't like know how your colleagues are doing outside of school. And sometimes I think it takes a while for seasoned teachers to open up. And I know like the colleagues that I worked with that struggled at first. I know we're all great friends now. It just took a long time to learn. Like some people like to get there before school and get stuff done. Some people only get there and work their contract hours. Some people stay after, and it just works different for everybody. And it can change too based off of your family dynamics at home and life commitments. And so I think that that's kind of what I will say, like, that is kind of a nice thing that Abbott Elementary does paint is like the differences between a seasoned teacher and a new teacher, and not in bad ways. But I think it's definitely like a good learning curve. If you're not a teacher, it's a nice way to look at the different perspectives. If you are a teacher, I think you can probably relate with both. If you think about your newer teacher self versus your older teacher self, um, or more experience. I don't mean old. I just mean like you've had years of experience versus a newbie. And so there's some differences. And I think you'll hear like older teachers say, when I was your age and when I was new, I had, and they're right. Like it is different when you are a new teacher versus a season because you learn things. There's just things that change over time. Some of it's out of your control. Those of us that taught through COVID have a way different perspective. That is one thing Abbott does not go into is like COVID. I think they like bring it up once or twice, but like I don't. The show wasn't on during COVID, so. But overall, it's just a really fun series, and I think that I can't wait to share some more about it. I've The other thing I did want to talk about was I have like a teacher's lounge piece I want to put in here. And that's really more just about the staff dynamics. And I feel like I'll do better next time. I'm not gonna this is again, it's just a reflection for fun. But the teacher's lounge piece, I really just wanted to talk about the different dynamics of the staff, you do kind of see like your classic cafeteria style seats when they go into this teacher lounge, and it's you can tell who's besties, you can tell who doesn't like each other, and it's a very small, obviously, teacher's lounge because it's a TV show, but it's just very funny to see how they all back each other up, pick on each other, and then also go into talking about the kids. I feel like you can definitely relate to the teacher's lounge scenes in some ways. So it was overall, it was really cool, and I just really enjoyed watching it. And I just love the show. I don't know. I just think it's a really cool thing. So yeah. Well, that is going to be it for this episode. The one thing I did want to, if you like it, hopefully you subscribe and come back for more. I'm going to start with the goal of posting one video a week. If I get into the flow, maybe two. We have like 4 or 5 seasons to go. So we have a lot of episodes. And I do want to leave you with a couple of questions though. So thinking about, let me get to the questions I wrote. So thinking about this, and I want people to that are finding this channel, I want you to really use this as a learning experience, whether you're a teacher, a student, just a parent. And so I'm just really curious when I ask these questions, and these questions for everybody to comment, and maybe eventually that'll develop into like a question and answer video. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I'm making this up. I mean, after watching the show, but I am making up, like, I'm learning this as I go, and I think that's okay to see me progress. I mean, nobody starts out perfect. So, if you are a teacher, though, I would like to know what parts of this episode felt most familiar to you, or what stuck out to you. Just kind of what's your teacher take? And then, if you're not a teacher, what surprised you about watching this series, and possibly like what questions do you have for us teachers that we can possibly help you with? If you're a parent, maybe this will also be a good time for you to reach out for some advice. So, and I will try my best to respond as I can. I think I'll probably set up one day a week where I go in and respond to comments. We'll see. Right now it's summer, so there's no schedule. Okay, so overall, I think we are done for today. So, class dismissed, and thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.